So normally I'm standing here on a Sunday morning and I'm saying, good morning to everyone, it's good to see you. But you're not there. And I'm not sure if it is a good morning. It is a good morning. It's a beautiful world out there, but we're struggling. And so it's a different time. And we're going to be doing things in a different way. But just know that we're going to do it together. We're going to be together as a community. We're going to find ways to make it a good morning, to reach out to one another, to be supportive. And I'll be having more announcements about that later on. I just want to thank you for joining us for this first ruggedly produced online service. We're just cobbling it together. Those of you with technical expertise who might want to weigh in later on, you can help us out, but at least we got the service up this Sunday, and we're happy for that. And I'm grateful for all the volunteers and the staff that joined us in making this possible this morning. And I'm looking forward to that day when I can look out and see you again. But for now, it's just good to look into a camera and know that you will be looking at me and I will be thinking of you.
Our gathering hymn this morning is Morning Has Broken. If you happen to have a hymnal at home, it's number 38. We will be singing the first verse.
What does the voice of fear whisper to you? Fear says, I want to make you safe. Love says, you are safe. Fear would walk with you on a narrow path, promising to take you to where you want to go. Love says, open your arms and fly with me. Every moment of your life, you are offered the opportunity to choose love or fear, to tread the earth or soar the heavens. Ram Dass. Please join me in saying our affirmation. Love is our doctrine. Compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration, build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world. We will now light our chalices like we do every Sunday. May I suggest that you possibly take a candle at home and light it as well, to show how you can be a light in the darkness. Our first chalice we light is for those of us in the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem, both at home and in our hearts. The second chalice we light is for our partner church in Šimenfalva, Transylvania, Romania, where we hear that there is no virus in the village, although there is report of viruses in Romania. And the third we light for the children of the world who are exploring their spiritual adventure and the interconnectedness of all. One day, a master said to his disciple, "In the land of the Spirit, you cannot walk by the light of someone else's lamp. You want to borrow mine. I want to teach you how to make your own. If you wish, please pause the video now and think about this, or talk about it with your children or loved ones that are present. What is your special gift, light, that can help us in this potentially dark times?"
Every Sunday, we have a ritual of compassion and gratitude. And I think I'd just like to take a moment to explain to you why I think that's important. Every time we come together, we have an opportunity to practice together. I think that practices are important in our life. What we practice is what we become. And that's why I have a ritual of compassion and gratitude in all our worship services, to remind us day by day to practice compassion. Because as we practice compassion for other people in our lives, we become more compassionate. I mention gratitude every Sunday too, because the gift of life is something that we often overlook. Everything is a gift. Everything is a gift. And during this time, perhaps we'll be more especially mindful of this fact. So many things that we've taken for granted are now no longer available to us. So let us today, instead of a ritual of compassion and gratitude, I would invite you to think of how compassion is going to be guiding you through this time. First of all, be compassionate to yourself. You're probably stressed. You're probably upset. And if so, take a breath and think of yourself like you would another person. Feel compassion for yourself. Feel compassion for those around you. Never before in human history, in our lifetimes at least, have we been so aware that we are all united. We are all united. May we have compassion for one another, especially during this time. In gratitude, I'm so deeply grateful for all the people who've stood up and helped out this week in our congregation, who helped build community. All the people who are working in our world to find a cure for this vaccine, all the healthcare professionals who are putting themselves out there. I'm grateful for the grocery store clerks. I'm grateful for all those who keep our lives running, all those things we normally take for granted. I would encourage you to practice focusing on these two emotions, these two feelings, compassion and gratitude during this time. I think it will help. We'll be expanding this ritual as we go along. We're just learning how to do an online service, but we'll be having opportunities for there to be more sharing during this part of the service. But I did want to remind you of why we do this and why I think it's so important. Amen.
by Kitty O'Mara. And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently, and the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new images and created new ways to love and heal the earth fully as they had been healed.
Gosh, it's hard to believe it was so long ago, December of 1992. It seemed like it was yesterday to me. I was the newly called minister of the First Unitarian Society of Salem, Oregon. Did you know that's what we used to be called before we voted to change our name to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem? And there I was driving up from Southern California. I was going to conduct my first worship service in the first Sunday of the year 1993. So I was driving up, everything was going pretty good. And then I got Northern California, and then I checked into a motel in Wairika, California, and I heard that a big snowstorm had hit. This was a big problem because the Siskiyou Pass was closed. So there I was, stuck in a hotel with two cats who didn't want to be there in Wairika, California. It looked like I wasn't going to be able to make it for our first Sunday service together. Solution? Technology. I was going to deliver my sermon via speakerphone, which I thought was an amazing thing to think about. But just in time, the pass cleared, and I was able to roll into Salem and deliver my first sermon, which we've all long since forgotten. But in future days, we're going to remember this time and reflect on how we weathered the biggest storm ever to blow our way in many a year. So here we are, all of us, in the same situation. Theoretically, I think I always knew that something like this frightening pandemic that's spreading around the world was possible, but now it's getting real. And it's hard to believe that we're just entering the rapids. It's going to be a challenge to get through this. How much of a challenge, we don't know right now, but it looks as momentous as anything we've collectively seen in our lifetimes. Last Sunday, we actually did have a service here last Sunday, but I read the paper before I came in. Many churches were closed that day. There was this Episcopal bishop in New York. He was advising the clergy under his authority to remain calm, saying, we don't have the freedom to indulge ourselves in the common fears of the masses. That phrase really struck me, coming from a minister. We don't have the freedom to indulge ourselves in the common fears of the masses. And I thought about this phrase, and I think I don't want to be too hard on the bishop. I know what the good bishop was trying to say, but the more I think about it, such a statement, a lot of questions got raised for me. I mean, must one either be a calm person and a fearful person? Can't you be some of both? Doesn't fear have some role in our lives? Fear fits in quite well in many instances in our lives. I'm grateful to fear for advising me not to do foolish and risky things, such that my body is still in fairly good shape. I actually wish I had listened to the voice of fear. Here I was on my bicycle trying to keep up with my son on a bike going down Sunny Slope Park, and I shouldn't have done that. Fear was telling me not to, but I didn't pay any attention, and then I ended up flying over the handlebars and breaking my collarbone. I should have listened to fear. But my body would be much more battered and bruised were it not for the sage counsel of fear, who has often advised me, danger, don't go there, that's too fast, avoid that situation. And now, when fear tells me to wash my hands and avoid getting too close to others, I know that's good advice and I follow it. I don't want to get sick or spread illness to others. Let's flatten the curve, as we're saying now. Flatten the curve so that this disease spreads more slowly, this virus spreads more slowly, and our healthcare professionals have time to treat us as we need to be treated. So if you're feeling a bit fearful right now, I think that's understandable. There's a lot to be worried about, most especially the well-being of our loved ones and ourselves, especially the elders among us. So many are worried about how you're going to pay your bills now that your income is dried up, and so many of you are fearful about how you're going to get along by yourselves because you're shut off from normal contact with other people, and that's rough. That's the roughest part for me. Right now, literally billions of us have legitimate fears about many aspects of our well-being, and I would not call these the common fears of the masses. They are our common fears. Our national stress level is high, and it's going to rise. It's okay to cry if you feel like crying right now. Go ahead. You may cry because you're grateful. You feel such deep gratitude for life and love we share now, and you are newly aware of how precious and fragile it can be. Or maybe you need to cry because you're grieving the loss of many things. There are a lot of things we're losing, a lot of activities and concerts and recitals and sporting activities and festivities. A lot of things are lost to us now. This will be a lost spring in many ways, although it's still beautiful outside. So it's okay to cry. There's nothing wrong with that. Fear is no fun, but it has this role in this unfolding drama when it helps us make safe decisions. I think of fear as like a burglar alarm that we have used to protect our homes and our buildings and our vehicles from intruders, and it's good when they properly alarm us. But isn't it irritating when you can't turn those damn things off? Not only are they no longer serving a purpose, they're creating new problems. The same with fear. Fear is a good servant. A person who has no sense of fear won't survive long in our world. But if your fear alarm, especially during this time, is sounding all the time for the next several months, it's not going to be your servant. It's going to become your master. Does fear deserve such a role? Fear does have a role. Fear is advising me more than any time in my life to wash my hands. My hands have never been so clean, nor yours, I dare say. This might be a good time to invest in companies that produce hand sanitizer or hand lotion. Think about that. Stock market's not doing too well right now, but let's just not pay attention to that. We'll get through this. The problem with my advisor fear is that it doesn't know when to stop talking, when to shut up. Fear wants all the attention all the time. All the time. Fear grabs your attention because it does have your best interest at heart, and yet fear does not have the wisdom to know what is in your best interest all the time. During his first inaugural address, and right after the Depression, during the Depression, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he proclaimed that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. But before I advance anywhere, I have to meditate. I do, every day. This is the practice for me of becoming calm and centered simply by focusing awareness on my breath. And I'm forever grateful to the wisdom of the Buddhist tradition that has transmitted this practice down through the centuries. I think of it as a gift. Our ancestors knew that life is hard. They knew that life was hard, and they gave us this practice and said, here's a practice that can make all the difference. And that's a gift. And so I accept that gift and I meditate on my cushion in one of the recommended postures at the beginning of every day. And I never have claimed to be a good meditator. My mind wanders, but whenever it does, I bring it back from the fields of anxiety or some other place where it may have wandered, and I simply redirect my attention onto my breathing. And the more you practice the more centered you become, more able to be in the moment instead of getting too far ahead of yourself, which we're all tempted to do during this time when the pandemic is approaching. For me, this daily practice of meditation is something that I'm so grateful to have because it helps me, it really does help me, to turn down the fear and the anxiety alarm. It's a simple and effective way, and it can easily ground you in a better place where there's less suffering and angst. It takes practice. You don't get good on the piano unless you practice, and you get better at meditation as you practice it. It transforms you. It actually transforms you. If you would like to begin practicing with a community or have some personal instructions from a teacher, we're going to provide a link during the announcements time later on the service, which will put you in touch with the Compassionate Mind Sangha, which is part of our community. So here I am bragging about all my meditation and all the meditation that I do, but it hasn't always been so. Confession time. Before I entered the ministry, and I had let go of my meditation practice, which I started in my early 20s, and I totally dropped my meditation practice during theology school because I didn't have time for a spiritual life. I was too busy studying and reading and writing books and writing papers. I knew beyond all doubt that this was a good practice, but for a while, for a few years, I fell into what I call my spiritual slacker phase. But when I graduated from theology school, I faced this new reality. I saw that ministry, and it has certainly proved to be very fulfilling, but it also can be stressful sometimes. I knew that I feared public speaking more than anything else, and I was wondering why I had chosen a career that involved public speaking, but here we are, and I knew that I was going to have to do something extraordinary to anchor myself, to keep from burning out or freaking out. I need to put on my own spiritual oxygen mask every day, every day. And so I made a vow. I made a vow to meditate every day. It's one of the wisest decisions I've made. I think it was I made this vow before I even got married, and it was an important one. Vows help you stay on track. That way you don't have to decide every day if you're going to meditate or stay married or whatever. You've made a vow. It's a serious commitment that is, paradoxically, very liberating. Every day when I wake up, I never have to ask myself, am I going to meditate today? I just do it, whether or not I feel like it, and it always helps. It always helps. And if I'm seriously ill, which I rarely am, I can't meditate, but all other days I do. And at this point in our lives, when we're being upended in so many ways, it's probably a good time to think about and commit to some wise self-care practices. It doesn't have to be meditation, but something that will enable you to stay grounded from moment to moment, day to day. This is going to go on for a while, and we need to be able to stay grounded from day to day. One practice some of us can adopt is to just make sure to take walks outdoors, or at least be outdoors if this is possible for you. I know it's not possible maybe for everyone, but many of you could do that, and I think that's a good idea. Maybe you should listen to some beautiful music. I can make some recommendations. You can do some yoga, or Tai Chi, or centering prayer, or dance, or sing. There are many ways for you to find your way back to your deeper, truer, wiser, calmer self. Maybe, like I did many years ago, make a vow to yourself to do this. Maybe now is a good time to embrace a gentle spiritual discipline. It's important that you and I care for our spiritual selves during this time. And I was glad this past week when I was on the phone with Lorna Youngs from our Lifelines Lay Ministry, and she could tell that I was over-functioning, and because of so much that's going on right now. And she reminded me that I need to take care of myself too, because we share this ministry and no one has to do it all. Fear can be a tyrant, and it is a tyrant in many ways, not just internally, but in our world at large. There's a pandemic now, and there's a lot of fear. And there are demagogues out there who may use this opportunity to prey on our fears. Indeed, I'm sorry to say, the current occupant of the White House is already stirring up racial animus against Asians insists on calling this the Chinese virus. It's despicable, it's a disgrace. If history is any guide, pandemics don't always bring out the best in people. And that's another essential reason that each one of us needs to find our calm and compassionate center and be a loving presence, and be a loving presence. A voice of reason, a voice of hope in the world, and a voice of conscience to remind the world not to forget the most vulnerable ones during this time. I stumbled upon this quote from Proverbs 4:23 last week. It's a good one. It reminds us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Our world is now in the throes of real change. I mean, we talk about change all the time, and yet this is substantial change we're going to be facing. And yet, let's not forget that in the long sweep of history, some of the best protections we now enjoy came about because those who came before us had to change, to adapt during hard times. Think of the Great Depression and the New Deal that followed. The world was so much better afterwards because of the policies that they put in place during that time. And now we're being forced by dire circumstances to recognize our interdependence. And more of us are beginning to recognize that having things, homelessness and crowding people together in prisons and having people without health care and living in poverty is not only unconscionably inhumane, it finally harms us all. Over the past few decades, our society has gotten more callous and unequal as the economic elites have angled for their own advantage and the politicians have done their bidding. And too many people have been fooled into supporting that which has not been in their best interest at all. And as a consequence, the social safety net is badly frayed. And it's a shame because we have had the resources to provide for all. We have. Yet we're trapped in systems that place the needs of the few over the needs of the many, and so many people live very hard lives on the margins. Too many also have been seduced by false and hateful narratives that separate and divide us. And yet now it's apparent to all of us that the coronavirus doesn't discriminate. All nationalities, races, ethnicities, all groups everywhere, we're all at risk. On the news we see the pictures of the world and the disease is appearing in every country. It's spreading everywhere. We're all into this together. Never before in our lifetimes have we had such a dramatic reminder of our commonality. We really are in this together, aren't we? So let's be together. Together we'll be stronger. As people of life-affirming faith, we are here to help calm and encourage and befriend one another during this time and to remind society that we can and we should turn down the volume of fear. And we're called to remind everyone of something vastly more important than fear, the vaccine against fear, the antidote to fear. And I speak of love, agape love, universal love, boundless love for everyone. Everyone needs that now. You and I both know there's a struggle ahead. I don't know how long this thing is going to last. I have to be honest with you, this virus may well bring hard losses. We may have to grieve. But we will bear this because we're stronger than we know. Too often the tyrant fear has convinced us that we're too weak to handle adversity. Yet here adversity comes anyway, and we are going to discover new strength, and we are going to endure. Our beloved community, and I wish I could see you today. Oh, I wish I could be looking out at you from the pulpit rather than sitting here in a chair delivering my sermon, but I know you're out there. We'll be improving our ways to communicate in the days to come. Our community is going to outlast this crisis. We will. Someday we're going to gather in that sanctuary over there, our spiritual home, and we're going to be so deeply grateful. And in the meantime, love will guide us as we create new ways to implement our shared ministry for one another and for our world. God bless us all. Amen. Since I talk so much about meditation in my sermon, and I refrain from doing that sometime because I don't want to emphasize one thing too much, but this is really an important practice, and it really can help you. So if you'd like to join me just in a period of meditation, why don't we do that right now? I just invite you to sit up straight in your chair if you can, and just close your eyes or stare downward, whatever helps you keep from being visually distracted. And just be aware of your breath as it flows in and out. You can focus your mind on your breath, which means that you're not focusing your mind on your fears and your anxieties. And focusing your mind on your breath makes such a profound difference. I invite you to sit with me now, just in a period of silence. Breathing in, breathing out. Being aware of the love that we share, the love that sustains us. Find that calm center, even in the most stressful time. Even in the most stressful time, you can always return to the breath. Focus your awareness on the breath. If you want to say a prayer or a blessing with your breath, that's good too. Maybe make it a practice to sit like this every day for a few moments. Let's have a moment together in silence, and then we'll end this meditation in the hopes that you'll pick it up further on.
You will discover you have two hands. One is for helping yourself, and the other is for helping others. Audrey Hepburn. This is no better time than now to be generous to yourself. So take a walk out in the sunshine. Have a hot fudge sundae. Stare up at the clouds. Now is also the time to be generous in helping others, especially at the moment to those in our community who may be needing a little extra time, money, or help. Though we do not have the ability to transport the little red wagon to your living room, like in Star Trek, the Marion Polk Food Share and others still need your support as able. This church functions on your time, talents, and yes, money. Remember, your pledges for the upcoming year are still needed, as are any monies you can donate to our Share the Plate recipient and partner church fund. This is also a good time to think about making a donation to the minister's discretionary fund, which helps members in their daily lives if they need help with bills or so forth. During the next few weeks, this fund will likely be dipped into many times. At the moment, monetary donations in the form of checks may be mailed directly to the office, with a statement for which purpose you would like the money to go to. Later, we hope to set up ways to donate electronically, as well as more tangible items. Thank you for continuing your generosity and commitment to this congregational community. From the light of our chalice, let us light the social justice candle as a symbol of the love and compassion we carry out into the world on our daily travels. As we extinguish the chalices, let us remember some words from Soul Matters. As we place protective separation between us, a space for silence and stillness emerges. Let there be wisdom and blessing in it.
I have just a few announcements here. First of all, if you're having a hard time and you just want to hear another human voice, call us. Call UUCS 503-364-0932. Leave a message on the warm line. If that's important to you to hear another voice, we'll get back to you. We're going to be having all sorts of information available to you thanks to our communication team through our Facebook page, our weekly newsletter, and our e-blast, so please stay tuned for information regarding all of that. I know some of you will be wondering about our Family Promise program. The guests who are homeless will not be staying here with us during this time, but we will be needing food, and thank you volunteers who have already stepped forward to offer that. And I'm really grateful. If you do need to talk to anyone about the Family Promise program, please contact Sarah Chateau. We'll be posting the information about her contact information online. Thank you.
Our closing hymn today is I've Got Peace Like a River. If you happen to have a hymnal at home, it's number 100. We will be singing verses 1 and 3.
So we can't join hands today to say our closing words. We can't place our hands on one another's shoulders either. But we can hold one another in each other's hearts as we say our closing words. Would you please join me as we say those closing words? May faith in the Spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days